All right, welcome back to the Koinonia Podcast. I'm here with Sandy Runner. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
It's been a long time. I've known Sandy for many years, and I still remember hearing you talk about your adoption story. Many people actually in this world of Placer County and Sacramento County have heard your story, and you've gone on to do amazing things. But that's not why we're here. We don't have time. You don't want to hear our personal stories. We want to talk about foster care. We want to talk about how to succeed as a foster or adopt parent, right? So I asked you, I said, what is on your heart? What are you passionate about? What did you say?
Well, I said, I think it's important in order to be successful as an adoptive or foster parent to have a community of people that are supporting and wrapping around you. And I think a lot of us know about the concept of wrap from an official perspective, but it's critical, I think, in order to be successful as a foster and adoptive family to have that concept of wrap in your life. And I think, not only just from the adoptive family's perspective, from somebody else's perspective of how you want to help people, or maybe you can't foster, but you would like to help, consider being that element of wrap for somebody.
So let's just give the audience a little explanation of wrap. So wrap is it actually stands for something, but essentially wrapping around a family. So agencies or counties will do this, where they'll come in and actually get into your home and help you with your child. It's kind of a do whatever it takes mentality to keep the kid in the home so they don't have to leave and maybe go to another home or God forbid, a group home, or depending on your state, an orphanage. Who knows? And so what you're talking about is the idea of keeping the child adopted or in the foster placement,
Right.
but not necessarily a state or a county entity coming in, but an adoptive parent or a foster parent who creates their own support systems. And so what are some examples of that?
Well, so I've made up my own acronym for WRAP that I've kind of used. So I'll tell you what mine is. I can't remember what the official one is, but I think about WRAP as words of encouragement, essentially, respite care, acts of service, and providing for needs. So just in kind of breaking that down, what that looks like to me is being in a support structure from a words perspective where you can talk through things, because there's so many challenges and it gets very overwhelming, and it can be a very lonely road, especially when you aren't surrounded by other families that have adopted as well or are fostering as well. They just don't understand the same way. You think you can talk to your friend about it, but the friend can't possibly understand. And oftentimes it creates this barrier because you may feel judged for the feelings that you're having with frustration with this adoptive child. So words also to me is learning, is getting those opportunities to take the resources around you, to get instruction, to get training, to read books, to really learn the tools that you need to be successful as an adoptive foster parent. Respite care, so critical. I mean, we all know that. Respite care is so critical to be able to have that time away, to be able to take a break, to be able to come back refreshed and excited to engage with your child.
So if you're a new parent and you're watching this video and you're like, what's respite? Well, respite is essentially
babysitting.
Yeah. Kids that may not normally at their age need to be, have a babysitter. But it's so important to get a break, whether it's a date night with your spouse or a trip for the weekend to go somewhere. And in fact, a lot of parents actually don't go anywhere. They place their child at the respite home, and then they just stay home and decompress and just try to feel a sense of normalcy. Because why would you need respite? Do people get respite from their biological children? Sometimes.
If you have good parents who are willing to come and babysit.
Yeah. But in this case, when you're fostering and you're adopting and you're working with kids from trauma, and they have a lot of behaviors that they are not their behavior, right?
Right.
That we talk about that with trauma-informed care, that the trauma is coming back as an experience,
right,
not a memory, right? So they're having their experiences all the time, and you're in the way.
Right.
You happen to be there trying to love and care for them, and their trauma's coming back, and it's tiring.
Completely. And I think that's the key of why we call it something different than babysitting, why you call it respite care, is because having somebody who can properly interact with that child. I know that for me, in being an adoptive parent, I really had to implement tools and strategies for dealing with the behavior. And a lot of people, and this is the importance of trauma-informed care in general, because you see it in Sunday school classes, things like that. They are just attacking the behavior. You need to stop. You need to stop. You need to go sit over here and time out. You're not doing the things you're supposed to be doing. But there's no understanding of what's happening behind that and getting to a root of something and using a strategy to de-escalate the situation versus just trying to create obedience from the situation.
Right. So if you use respite in a home of a family who is not aware of the understanding of the behaviors and the trauma, and that these are, they'll use traditional parenting, and God forbid they might spank a kid or lock them in a closet or put hot sauce or soap in their mouth, especially if they're an active foster placement. You can get in trouble for that. But if you don't understand these things, it's going to be overwhelming to your average grandma who thinks they're just going to just make cookies and have a nice evening. And so that's good. So so how do we find those people though?
Well, I think, there are, first of all, various agencies, I think like the regional center, that have respite care programs. There are churches, a lot of churches who offer respite nights. Really, I would recommend looking up in your local area respite nights. Many churches provide that, again, with the concept of RAP being not only creating your own RAP infrastructure, but if you're listening to this and you're saying, I can't take a kid in my home, but I want to help, you can provide some of that RAP elements, some of those things that you can do. And so you can go to get certified and be able to be a respite care provider. Places like Koinonia, agencies, that you are working with, and the county, have people who are certified as respite care providers.
Yeah, we can approve, and we do approve a certain amount of respite homes, and that's all they do. They just watch kids short term, and that works really well. I know locally here, we're in Placer County. Shout out to Destiny Church and Defending the Cause. You guys have partnered with doing these respite nights and trying to support foster parents. And so if you're further out than Placer County and you need an example, I would look up Destiny Church in Rockland, California. And then you actually partner with Defending the Cause, or I believe you're a volunteer or an employee of some sort there. And what is their website?
So defendingthecause.org, and they're actually going through a bit of a name change at the moment. Okay. So the Alliance, just really to reflect the fact that it's an alliance of nonprofit organizations working together along with churches and local agencies, just to provide those types of wraparound services as well. Really, that's a place where you can go, defendingthecause.org, and learn about different community providers that have things that you can get as it relates to not only just respite, but some of these other areas of RAP as well.
Yeah, and one of the partners there is, I don't know if they're called Safe Families anymore. I think
Safe Refuge.
Safe Refuge. And so that's another example of, it's kind of like respite. It's a little longer than respite. But let's say you've adopted and you're having a really hard time and you don't want your kid to go back to the system, but you just need a little more than a weekend off. Safe Refuge can try to partner with you potentially and actually help with the child, even watch the kid in an extended voluntary-based situation. And I think we're going to see more of that. We're going to see more of voluntary services and supports to families, because we don't want to keep having the foster care system in California.
Right.
Federally, they don't want it either. They want us to support each other and prevent things and not keep pulling kids out of homes. And so that what we're seeing here, and the reason I invited you, is because many people have adopted in the state of California the last 20 years through foster care, as well as private and overseas. It's a huge number in the last 20 years compared to when I was a kid. And so, yay, we adopted, and then we disappeared from the services and the systems, and now we're getting calls, families 10, 15 years later saying, what do I do with this kid? There's all kinds of new issues, and we don't know what to do. And so my encouragement is to take your advice, listen to her, and get support, even if you don't think you need it. You may not feel like you need these supports, but if you stay engaged and you get support, counseling, respite, whatever the kid needs, then it won't get to the point where it blows up, and then you're calling the county or the state or an agency saying, take this kid back. I don't want this kid anymore. And I sounds horrible, but it's happening.
I mean, I couldn't emphasize that point more. It is happening, and adoption relinquishment or dissolution of adoptions happen quite a bit more than you think. And I think that people go into this really truly wanting to help the kid and also believing that love conquers all. Unfortunately, love doesn't always conquer a damaged brain. It just doesn't. And so you have to go in equipped for it. And I was sharing with you earlier, I have a friend who runs 100-mile marathons, which is significant. Nothing that I could do, nothing that you could probably do as well, but he runs 100-mile marathons. And when he goes into this marathon, he goes into it preparing for all the things that might go wrong. He goes into it with a team of people who are at mile markers with Band-Aids or new shoes or, obviously Gatorade refills or, just people to hug him and tell him he's doing a good job. He has people who, at points where he knows that he struggles, run the race with him alongside him for a mile or two. And if he went into that 100-mile race and just assumed everything was going to be okay and didn't put any of that infrastructure in place, he's probably going to fail.
Yeah.
I mean, he really likely is going to, and he doesn't necessarily think he's going to, but he's not equipped to do the marathon that he's about to run. And while 100-mile marathons are really hard, adopting children who have significant trauma in their life, really, really, really hard.
It's a marathon.
It is a marathon. Right. It's hard work. And
people think adoption day is the end of it.
Right.
They're like, oh, we hit adoption day. That's the beginning.
Yeah.
That's the beginning of a marathon. And it's part of the marathon that there's the least amount of support.
Yeah.
Unless you go get it.
Unless you get it.
Because once you've adopted legally, the system says bye.
Yeah.
You're on your own. And so please hear us. If you've adopted or if you plan to adopt, you got to remember that adoption day is the beginning of a marathon that you're going to need support. Right. And so wrap around these communities, stay connected to your agencies, try to make sure that you are preventative and ready for the challenges that are going to come, because trauma can show itself at any age, as late as 30 or even 40 years old. We know foster kids that are just now starting to go to counseling, because I grew up with foster kids and I still connect with them, and gosh, they're 30, 40, 50 years old and they're like, gosh, I need help. And we're like, okay, well, let's get some therapy. Let's get some support. And you just never know when it's going to hit, So anyway, thank you for coming. Yeah. I think that's amazing what you guys are doing over there at the Alliance. And we will see you next time. Thanks for coming.